Hi guys, it's Moonshine here, and I'm finally doing my video on how I became a witch. I'm probably going to call it Becoming a Witch because it's a long process, and this is actually a video response to Ember Honeyraven's video, How Did I Become a Witch? I finally found the right time to do the video. I've been waiting, I talked about this in my video this morning, but I kind of waited a little while to do it. Not because I didn't know what to say, so much as I wasn't sure when the right time was, or in my list of videos that I've done, it was kind of one of those things that I wanted it to be the right time. And since she touched on a lot of how the process works, is it's more of a homogenous thing rather than, suddenly you are versus what before you weren't. I kind of wanted to respond to that in my own way. And first I'm gonna tell you about the fact that I don't think you ever quite get there. I think that we're constantly becoming more and more of something, at least I feel like I'm always changing. So I think I've talked about it before, but my path has taken, several leaps and bounds rather than, along with a lot of small steps, other than boom, it was done. It was kind of like, here we are, and then a little while later it was like this, and then, some time down the road, and then bam, here I am now. But it's not like, I guess you're born into a religion, and then you identify as that, and either you stay in that religion or you change or you leave or you find something that fits better. And I did, like I said before, I grew up in a Catholic household, so I grew up with that. But I have to say, and this might be a little embarrassing, but I'm going to say it anyway, I was always kind of different in my family. I was never, exactly like everybody else was. I didn't feel satisfied by the faith that I'd been brought up with. It didn't fit. It wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't how I felt. And for the most part, I think I've always kind of known. But I think, especially when I was younger, I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't know where my path was leading me. As I got older, obviously I had a bit more of an idea of it, and because of, access to the internet kind of changed everything. But I'll start this by saying that my favorite movie when I was a kid growing up was actually Hercules. And I think I've said it before, but I've always been fascinated by the gods, especially of the Greek and Roman persuasion, and that was kind of what brought me into it, and kind of, I grew up studying mythology. I had a lot of books on mythology and, Greek history and such like that. I was very interested in it. I read the Iliad, I read the Odyssey, I loved the Greek tragedies, I loved all of that. I found it very fascinating. It kind of, I fit in that world. That world made sense to me. But really, I think it all kind of started with that. Not so much wanting to be a god, but wanting to believe that they were real, because they were a lot more interesting than anything I read in a book about my parents' religion. Having one god that didn't really seem very nice, it didn't really fit in my understanding of the world. But all of the different gods that I started studying and researching and learning about, even just as mythology, at that point I really just was like, oh, these are stories, and this is what people used to believe in. It was really kind of fascinating to me. But they had such, they were more relatable. Even their stories and all the lore about things that they did, how they became gods, and how they were worshipped and all that, was a lot more interesting to me, and very human in a way, that they had personalities that you could understand. They had beliefs, they had actions, they had family members, they had relationships, they had, interactions with humans, and I just found it a lot more, what I wanted. What I wanted to be close to, what I wanted to be a part of. So it started there, and then, kind of along the same lines, we started studying them in school, and I actually did a research project on the god Hermes, and I remember, learning that this was actually a religion, that it was a serious thing, that to the Greeks and to the Romans, they were real, and I had never really, at first I couldn't understand it, because I was like, that's awesome, that's crazy, these stories, they were not just stories to them, they lived it, and then it was kind of like something clicked, and so I would say I started out more pagan, and then kind of moved on to witchery after that. But this was all like when I was kind of young, like 10 up until like 13, and then I came across paganism as an actual religion, and learned that people nowadays actually practice it, and I got very interested in it. And like I said, I started out with Wicca, but that didn't last for very long. It maybe a couple years. I'd say, yeah, about 5. So the first 5 years of my practice, until about the time I was like 18, 19 years old, it was Wicca for me. That it was what I did, and a lot of that was very still eclectic. I was moving as I got older. I got more into Venus and Demeter, and not so much the 3-parted of the goddess. That didn't stick for very long. That was my introduction, and that I still hold true to enjoying that time of my life, but my path kind of wound its ways. It kind of, and it's still going, I was still learning about more and more, especially since I got the goddess book. There's so many to learn about, and continue, I think, to learn about them, and maybe I'll get the opportunity to work with more than I have in the future, and I only have worked with very few, to be honest, not very many. I've done a little work with Artemis. I did do some work with with Venus, which is right now my patron. She's my woman. So I have a lot of patronage to her. And I've done some with, I think I said Demeter, and I've done some with Persephone, but that's mostly because of the time of year it is. But I don't really follow the crone, and I don't, the 3-parted goddess with the 3 stages. I like the concept, but it doesn't really resonate with what I want to get out of what my religion is. What my faith and my spirituality is. And it's really just continues to change. But I would say about around 19 or 20, which is about 5 or 6 years ago now, kind of changed again. My path kind of split again. And I got very interested in other aspects. I started learning about Celtic mythology, and I got very interested in it for a while. And now I'm doing Norse mythology, that I'm studying that, and I want to learn more about everything. But that's really when I kind of defined myself. I said, I'm eclectic. I'm very interested in, I'm a pagan eclectic witch. I believe in all the gods. I believe there are gods that we don't even have names for, kind of like the Hindus do. But I'm just fascinated with learning about them. I want to meet them. I want to know them. I want to be close to them. But it will always be goddesses for me, I think. I identify and I adore the divine feminine, and I feel like it resonates in here with me. Which, if it doesn't for you, that's great. If you, this is one of the religions I feel like in the world that you don't have to be cut and paste with it. We can all grab from parts we like. A lot of people are Egyptian with what they do more with, like, the Egyptian gods and the goddesses, and a lot to do with, the Greek, or they don't like the Roman, or they like the Greek, or they don't like the Greek, and, and there's even beyond that. A lot to do with a lot of women do things with the Morrigan, a lot to do with the Cerridon, and there's just so many, that I feel like it's open to everyone. You don't have to choose, but if you do, that's great. You have the options to choose from. You don't have just one thing that you have to follow, and that's what has made me stronger, I think, because of the way that our paths, I feel like, as you become a witch, you get to discover so much about yourself, so much about the world. And I think really there was one day that actually I finally said, you know what, I think that's what I am. I'm not just a pagan. I want more than just that. And I started doing magic. I started, trying my hand at whatever I could get my hands on. I don't do so well with writing my own spells, but, yeah, 10 years into it, we all have things to learn. I recently just joined Witchiversity, so I'm going to be studying and learning a lot more, which I wish I had joined earlier, but it took me forever to discover it. I know it existed, which is also run by Ember, Honeyraven. But, well, let's see. The very first day that I actually called myself a witch was around 19. And, I that was when I did my first real of anything, I guess. I had done a lot of research, I'd done studying, I'd, communed and talked with the goddesses and gods, and I'd done a lot of that, but I hadn't really done anything in particular. I didn't really do any ritual, I didn't do any magic. So right at that point, for those few years, it all been kind of spiritual and kind of study based. But I did an initiation ritual into kind of like, not so much into Wicca, but into being a witch. And I went up on a hilltop with my best friend. At the time, she's not my friend anymore, but our paths took different routes, and maybe someday our paths will lead back to each other, but it's not the point. The point is that I was with someone that I trusted, that we felt connected to the earth, and so we did our initiation. And I'll never forget, we were walking back home after we did it, and bright sunny day, beautiful weather in the middle of like August. Or maybe it might have been July, but it was, beautiful summer weather, and not a cloud in the sky, and all of a sudden a crack of lightning. It's beautiful, sudden, instantaneous crack of lightning, single cloud, and we kind of took that as a sign, okay, join us. If you're a witch, you're witches, you're pagans, we accept you, kind of thing. And that was the first time I ever felt really close to them. There have been kind of times after that, but that was the initial one that I felt home. I felt like a witch. Maybe you can call it coincidence, but middle of summer, no clouds in the sky, no rain, nothing, lightning crack. What does it say to you? And things, changed after that. We did more. We did a lot of spells together, but we also did a lot separately. I think I've learned the most in the last couple of years being on my own. Not working with anyone, not discussing it with anyone, which sounds kind of really beyond solitary so much as hermit. But I really just mean that, I didn't need anyone else. I had myself, I had my faith, I had, all these tools in front of me. I had books, I had the internet, Tumblr, Google, everything. And, ever since then, my path has continued to change. And I still identify as a witch. I probably always will. I'm kind of morphing into, as I get older, there's a different kind of witchery. And, someday I'm going to be a witch mom, and I'm kind of excited to be that mother that, take take this, you'll feel better, you know, and such things. And then especially I think that this is for life for me. I'm a witch. People are going to find that out, you know, their own way. They're going to, you know, more and more people are learning about me, and my family is learning the truth. The people that I care about most know, and that's all that matters. But I'm happy that I'm actually, you know, having this experience, especially on YouTube, talking to you guys, because it's been very cathartic, to get my thoughts out and to get my feelings out and to talk about, you know, these things, because, you know, as a solitary witch in the middle of nowhere, where I know there probably aren't any others, and since I don't live at home anymore and I'm far away from a lot of people, you know, things are kind of good to have, you know, internet friends, you know, internet witches to talk about things with. So I hope you kind of learned a bit more about me. I hope you guys kind of made you think about your paths as well, and kind of about your, you know, how you became a witch, how we all, you know, what day defined it, you know, what path took you there. Are you still on your path? Are we forever on our path? Do we, you know, have bumps in the road, and are they really bumps in the road? You know, there have been times where I think we've all felt tested, not so much maybe in our faith, but in our strength and our abilities, but we keep going. So I mean, we're like one of the strongest bunches because we're small. We're a small little bunch, but we're amazing, and I love you guys. So thanks for watching.